beautiful little symbols that you're not alone. And it happens all the time. So just open your eyes, your ears, your heart, and your soul.
Welcome to Exploring the Mystical Side of Life with your host, Linda Lang.
Hi, this is Linda Lang from ThoughtChange.com. We are exploring the mystical side of life once again this week. If you enjoy our conversations, remember to subscribe, share with a friend. Today we are talking signs and synchronicities. I have energy healer Liliane Fortna here with me. Welcome, Liliane.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Linda.
Liliane, it's one of your passions to really share the message with the world that we're always supported. There are always signs and guidance and support for us everywhere we go. Can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to that conclusion?
I had an illness, and during that illness, I made a very interesting discovery. And it answered many of the questions I had, and it gave me a clearer vision of the way I saw myself and the place I have in the universe. That's when I realized that I'm not alone, and I was never alone. So you see, my life had been an amazing journey during which I experienced deep pain, but also great joy. And most of my life, like many people, I had an impression that there was much more to me than my physical body. But I never spent much time thinking about it or how or why things happened to me. Oftentimes people would say, "Oh, you're lucky." But I would just shrug and say, "Oh, that was coincidence." But then a few years ago, I experienced a life-threatening medical condition that caused me to slow down and think about all the terrible as well as exceptional things that occurred during my life. I found myself starting to reflect on all the events that led me to where I am today. So many stories came back to my mind from as far back as when I was a young child. I started to make major changes to the way I approach life. That's when I realized that these discoveries had to be captured in a comprehensive way. I felt compelled to write my stories down, and by doing so, I gradually realized I have a message to deliver. We are never alone. This led to an even bigger discovery. Most of us had to deal with exceptional situations or have serious questions about how or why we're here. I realized that I must share the importance of not only seeing, but also interpreting and using the signs offered to us on a regular basis. That's how I started to write my book, Wings from Above.
So, what kind of signs and synchronicities captured your attention?
It could be a sound, and the sound takes me somewhere, and that somewhere is exactly what I need. The sound could be a song with a phrase, and that phrase could be the answer to what I'm looking for. So that could be one of the signs. It could be you're thinking very strongly about somebody and you say, "Oh God, I have to call that person," and you don't. You procrastinate, and one day you say, "Today I have to contact that person." The phone rings and it's that person calling. Or you go to the store and that person is right there in the store. Little things like that. That's a sign. It's placed right there for you to see. But you could have ignored it entirely. It could be a series of numbers. You look at your clock. Every time it's 11:11. Happens to me a lot. But it could be another number, series of numbers. What does it mean? There are different explanations for these numbers, but to me, I take it as a wink. I'm not alone. It could be a smell. Let's say suddenly you have a whiff of a cake that, let's say, your mother, who has departed, used to make, and that takes you back to your childhood. But why is that smell there when there is no cake? around. To me, it's because your mother or the departed one is nearby to help. They're part of our guides. So there are so many signs that happen, and sometimes you put the dots together and it's so much fun. Like, I'll give one that was something that came back later on, a story of my childhood. Every morning for a certain length of time, there was a little dog coming to the garden door, bark. It was time to go to school. My childhood was very lonely, and quite a few kids bullying me when I would reach school because I was not totally white like everybody. So I had nasty things said at me. But I had that little dog come to my door, and I don't know if it lasted several weeks or months. I don't know, but I remember it very clearly. It would bark, I would come down, and would trot beside me, take me into school, leave me at the door, at the gate. And then the school was over and he would be there waiting, taking me back to my home. He was not there to play. I could pet him, but he didn't want to play. He had a job to do. And, at the time it seemed normal. It's later on when I thought of that, I said, this is beautiful and strange, but it was a time when I needed a little companion because when I would reach school, the bullying would not really be there. Or when I left school. So many little things like that happened that at the time I didn't see as signs. But now, looking back, it was definitely a sign that I was protected. And they were bringing me the love or whatever I needed at the time. Look, it's very important that you keep a journal. It doesn't have to be fancy, extremely well written, but keep a journal so you know that certain things happen at a certain time. And then you might realize later that, oh, that happened a year ago, but there is connection with this now. Oh my God, So you can see the signs that were there that you did not understand at the time, but then, so there are so many things happening to us on a daily basis. It could be a little bird that, let's say one of your departed ones loved a certain type of bird, and you didn't used to see them around much. And since she's departed, periodically you see one looking at you, not only perched on a branch, but looking at you and then coming closer to you. And to me, that's also a sign. Signs are there to just let us know that we're not alone. They give us an answer sometimes to a question we have. They can also come through dreams. You have a dream and what does that mean? Sometimes it seems obscure, and then you think very clearly, oh my God, that's the answer that I needed. So you have a whole series of signs, and it's just beautiful.
Liliane, so many people expect their guidance to come in full-blown visions or very detailed, clairaudient messages. It's not always like that. It's not always like that at all. Sometimes it's very subtle and it can seem like coincidence. How can they open their mind to really recognize that those things are signs and not just coincidence?
First of all, there is some cleansing to do. I give a series of blockages. Depression is one, fear, anger, hatred. I mean, there are so many things that puts like a gray cloud around us through which we can't see light. And when we are in that mode, we can't perceive anything. We also have to expand our mind, because if we are used to seeing just a certain way and it's very strict, then we don't leave space to see and interpret differently. We also have to see what our beliefs are, because they are sometimes so strong that you may have a glimpse and say, and then right away you're no, that's work of the devil or whatever, So there are many, many different things that could be done. And I give a whole series of what to think about, and then exercises, like something very, very simple that everybody can do, because everything I give, it's available to anyone without having to pay money, because we all have it here. Just go into the forest. And if you don't have a forest because you live in a city, then go in a park and look at a tree. And then there are ways of looking, ways of listening that puts you in the moment. And when you're in the moment, suddenly you might, you're listening maybe to a little waterfall. And because your ears are wide open, you hear a bird. And that bird might lead you elsewhere. And suddenly you started asking questions. You were not very well settled. And you come back and you have the answer. You know what to say. You don't have doubts about what you have to say or the answer you receive. So it's important to do some work on ourselves. And that in itself is not easy, but if you want to see the signs and not interpret them wrongly, then it's important to do that. And I give a whole, series of simple exercises. Take a walk, dance. If you look at little children, they can dance, turn on music, and they start moving. They can do all these things. Why can't we do it anymore? But the thing is, it's in us. All of us have that. And if we have expectations about a sign, I want my sign to appear. No, that won't work. Sometimes it might appear, you expect a person and then suddenly you have a little animal showing up, to show you the way. An animal that could be a symbol, a butterfly, bird. Birds are oftentimes part of the signs. So it's sometimes so beautiful and so joyful, because all that is natural, and it touches us to the most profound part of ourselves. And there is so much beauty in it, so much joy. So even when life is difficult, like it does happen, and there are times when sorrow is inevitable, like death or big things in life, we have to leave time, we have to nurture ourselves and leave time for that to process. That's normal. But it never lasts. It might take a week, a month, a couple of years, but it will go away. And it's important to try to find those little things that still make you connect. As long as you're connected, you're okay. So that's how I see life. And it's so joyful.
I think that when we see those signs, that there is a part of us that really does recognize that it means something. Just like when we have dreams that aren't just about processing our life, but they're actual guidance. Even if we don't really know what it means, we know that it means something.
I totally agree with you, but the problem that many people have is that they don't believe in themselves, they don't believe in their intuition. So there is work to do in that area. There are so much turmoil in their lives that they can't see the clear way out. They still harbor a lot of hatred towards somebody, and when it's there, you don't see anything because everything is tinted by hatred. There are so many things that block us, but when you're open, it's beautiful, And actually, the fact that I was able to reconnect, and I realized I was always connected because it was in my diaries, except I just let it go. I was so used to see and do that I did not even think or thank them. Because of my childhood, it was a matter of survival for me to be able to see the signs and follow the guidance. And then I kept that as a teenager. I was in a city, so I didn't have the sea and the woods like I had when I was a little child. But there were museums. The Louvre in Paris became my second home. Every Sunday I would spend the day there. It was free. And art became the surrogate of nature in some ways. And it allowed me to remain connected spiritually in some ways. Just like I did with nature, because I found beauty, I found it was very stretching for my soul. I could feel so much at peace.
You said something very interesting, Liliane, and it's something that I think when we're in those darker moments in life, we forget that we're always connected and we're always supported.
Yes, and that's important. I was always, except I did not see. And honestly, 50 years ago, I did not know what was happening, and I would have loved to talk to someone about it. But I didn't know to whom to talk. I was raised Catholic, and these were the things I should not talk, although the nuns were open-minded, I would say, quite open-minded, but I would not ask questions in that direction because it was against the dogma.
As children, we are connected when we have more awareness of that connection.
Yes, and it disappears around the age of 6 when children go to school. Because there they learn, well, first of all, there is a connection with other children, so they learn new things. Oftentimes they are told, oh, imaginary friend. No, that's all in your mind, it doesn't exist. So they start to lose the magic that they had in their lives. And that's very sad. So some parents ask me to write a book for children based on what I write. If we start the children very young, and they are able to keep that, then it's much easier later in life. They don't have to reconnect; they remain connected.
I see that as, again, more support from the universe, that when you start those creative juices, the universe responds by giving you more inspiration and more opportunities, more connections to help you create that.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful. My granddaughter last year, when she was 4, she wanted to play in a grassy area, but there was a sting bug. She doesn't like sting bug. So I said, okay, I have something for you. Put your hands on your heart. Close your eyes. Now, can you see the sting bug in your mind eye? Can you see it? Mm-hmm. Can you talk to it? Mm-hmm. And you tell her you understand it's her home, but you would like to play there, right there. Maybe she could go away for a little bit. At the same time, the sting bug was moving away. So I said, open your eyes. And she, oh, it works. I said, yes, and now you can do that for a lot of things. Things you don't want, things you want, just sit in your mind. Stay there and keep it right here. It was wonderful, I thank the sting bug for that, it was good, you heard. It was so cute. But there are ways to teach children, and when you see the, the face was so beautiful, so illuminated by this discovery, but they can keep that. Children can keep that. One thing that is popping to my mind, it's about dreams. I lost a cat. There was a lot of wind, and the cat escaped the enclosed area where we lived. And 3 nights later, I had a dream, and I could see the cat in a cellar, very dark cellar, but there was a fireplace. And it's a weird fireplace in a cellar. Okay, the next day I went to the grocery store. Now, as I entered, there was the owner was speaking with a lady, and the lady was saying, well, I heard it's behind the door of the building you are renovating. And he said, oh, I don't have the time right now. And the lady left. And I did something I would never do. I ran after the lady. I said, what were you talking about? And she said, there is a cat behind the door, and it's his building. So I wanted him to know because it's been 3 days. Take me there. And there was a little gap under. So I put my hand and there was a little head that came into my hand. I knew it was my cat. There was a steep flight of stairs going down. There was a fireplace in that cellar with my cat. So sometimes things work, it's a mystery, but we just have to accept it and say, thank God, or whoever, I'm thanking my guides for helping me in that case. But you see, energy, the cat sent something to me through her eyes. How could I know there was a fireplace? I mean, I never heard of a fireplace in a basement. So those things are wonderful. This is fabulous. There is so much more to discover that we don't know about our capabilities. We're so much more than we think. So it's really beautiful. And when we look at it that way, even though life is not always, there are lots of problems sometimes, but still there is so much more, so much beauty, so much fun too to have, and so much mystery that makes me think that there is so much more, so much more.
Reminds me of that quote from the Bible, be as little children to enter the kingdom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very much so. Liliane, your book is called Winks from Above. Can you share just a little bit about how that came about, why you wanted to write it?
Well, I wanted to write it because that's when I realized that during my life I was always guided, but I took it for granted. And I did not use guidance as well as I should have because I just took it for granted. Now, there are many people out there who don't see the signs or don't feel the guidance, or they do feel it, but they don't understand and they would like to know more. So the book is for anyone who has experienced a strange or weird and inexplicable event, and all of us had that, and they want to understand why. Or they know or sense deep inside that they are more than their physical body, but they haven't been able to define what that means to themselves. It's for anyone who feels that the usual dogmas about who we are and where we come from and where we're going after death are not satisfactory. We don't understand. We just have to believe, but we don't have an explanation. Anyone who feels that things don't happen by chance and want to explore how and why events might actually be related. And finally, for anyone who wants to better understand how they relate to the universe so they can achieve a more meaningful and joyful life. So those are the basic tenets of why I wrote the book and for whom.
It's a journey that most of us are on, I think.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But you need some tools to make it even happen faster or with more ease or fun.
And Liliane, where can we send people who want to know more?
My website is wingsfromabove.com.
Thank you so much for being my guest today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was a delight.
I love the childlike sense of play and wonder that you just naturally carry. It's very inspiring and it's a beautiful doorway into those higher realms.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And they like to have fun, let me tell you. I giggle sometimes quite a lot listening to them. There is so much out there that we don't benefit from because we block ourselves. So it's important. I want people to just open their arms and their heart and themselves to all these wonderful gifts that are offered to them.
So true, right? Spirit is light, not just like light, but light as in not heavy. It is playful and inspiring and creative. And that's one doorway in, right?
There is so much negativity in this life. We need to bring light. We all carry the light. We just have to open all the channels and we can shine lights on the world. It's the way I feel, really. And we start by ourselves. That's why it's important to do the changes here, because once we have established our boundaries are important, it's not selfish, it's important. Once we have that, then we can shine. Otherwise, we're hurt in different places. So we can shine, and then the light is transmitted to somebody else and somebody else.
Liliane, before we wrap up, what is one last message that you would really like all of the listeners to take to heart?
It's very important to remember that the signs and synchronicities are offered to us on a daily basis, but we always have the choice. We're never forced to do anything. We're just offered different possibilities, and depending where we are at that time, we just choose.
So true.
You always keep your free will to do things. That's very, very important. And that's where you can also make mistakes and you realize, oh God, I should have chosen. But, this is still your choice, although possibility was there.
I often think that, the guides that support us down here, there must be days when they're banging their heads against the wall because of the choices we make.
Yes, I have a wonderful picture of an angel sleeping that way. But it's so much fun. And thank you so much. It was a delight to speak with you.
Thank you again for being my guest.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for listening to this week's edition of Exploring the Mystical Side of Life. You will find all of our conversations on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Come visit me at thoughtchange.com. Pick up your copy of Learning to Listen. If it's time to bring a little magic into your life, check out my program, Alchemy from the Inside Out. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.